Today's story began only last week. Unknown to me, Inspector Noah Danton had been approached by a man named Ben Cramer, who believed his wife was in danger of being murdered. Inspector Danton was unaware of the fact that on the evening previous, Ben Cramer had paid a visit to a boyhood friend named Steve Allison.
Hello, Steve.
Well, if it isn't good old Ben Cramer. What are you doing, Ben? Selling magazine subscriptions?
No, Steve. I'd like to talk to you.
Oh, sure. Sure, go ahead and talk. What's stopping you?
Well, would you mind if I came in, Steve?
Yeah, I would. What's in your mind, chum?
It's about Judy.
Judy?
She's sick. She wants to see you.
Come in. Sit over there.
This is good, Steve. You've done well. It's warm here.
Never mind that. What about Judy?
I'm afraid there isn't much hope, Steve.
You think Judy's nowhere to die?
She's very sick. Pneumonia. The doctors give her only a short time.
You rat. It's your fault, you and your pride and your false morals.
Steve, you're choking me. Don't.
I ought to choke you to death. You killed her, Cramer. You killed the most wonderful woman who ever lived.
It's all right, Steve. I don't blame you.
You blame me. That's a laugh. If you'd only let me...
I know. I won Judy away from you, Steve, by promising her things that I knew I could never provide.
By lies, by running me down, by setting yourself up as a moralist.
It's true. I'm not denying it. I loved Judy madly. That's why I...
Loved her?
I did, Steve. I did. You should understand that. You loved her, too.
Yeah, I loved her, too.
And you still do, don't you, Steve?
So what if I do? What difference does it make?
Steve, listen to me. I failed. I tried, but I failed. I wanted to give Judy everything.
Don't try to make yourself out a hero, Cramer. You were a rat right from the start.
All right. I was a rat. I knew I couldn't fulfill the promises I made.
Yeah, but you married her just the same. She fell for your lies, and she married you instead of me.
I'm sorry, Steve. Believe me, I am.
Sorry? Sorry about what? That she married you? Cramer, you can't help being a rat, can you?
Allison, do you think a rat would come to you tonight as I have? Would a rat humble himself enough to ask help from a man he hates?
Ah, at last you've given it a name, haven't you, Ben? You've admitted that you hate me.
Yes. I do hate you, Steve Allison. I hate you because you always had more than I. Because you were more popular. Because you had family and background and all the things I never had.
Huh. That's interesting. Tell me more.
I hate you because it was you who drove me to tell Judy the lies I had to tell her in order to win her.
Well, that justifies everything, doesn't it?
I hate you, Steve. I'll never stop. But I love Judy more. Will you go to her?
Go to her?
She's been asking for you in her delirium. She wants to see you. Will you go to her?
She's been asking for me?
Yes, I guess it's been there in the back of her mind all the time. The fact that she made a mistake.
I see. Well, what can I do? Is there any hope?
I don't know. Perhaps. If she becomes rational and you were there, she...
All right, I'll go.
Steve, do you mean it?
I said I would, didn't I? There's just one thing.
Anything, Steve. I'll do anything.
I want to see Judy alone. You keep away.
I will, Steve. I will. I'll stay away as long as you want.
Okay. I'll write your address in a slip of paper and then get out. Judy.
Good heavens. Judy! Judy! Another gun. She's been shot. Judy! She's dead. I gotta get out of here.
All right, son, drop that gun. Get your hands up. You're under arrest for the murder of Judith Cramer. Now, look, Bart. I tell you, the case is dead open and shut. I caught the guy red-handed.
It was you who made the arrest then, Inspector.
Sure, it was me. I opened the door, and there was this guy, Steve Allison, with a gun in his hand, and the body of Judith Cramer on the floor with a bullet through her heart.
I see. Ben Cramer, you say, Judy's husband, came to you because he suspected that Steve Allison was going to pay his wife a visit.
Yeah, that's it. Cramer figured that Allison was going to murder Judy.
Why?
Why, what?
Why did Cramer figure that Allison was going to murder Judy?
I've already told you.
Oh?
Judy and this Allison were old sweethearts. They've been playing around. Kramer found out about it.
And he told his wife that unless she stopped seeing Allison, he'd kill her.
That's the deal?
Mm-hmm. But instead of that, Allison shoots Judith.
Yeah, Allison shoots Judith. Dead open and shut.
Inspector, you're wonderful.
Something funny, eh? What?
Yes, Inspector, you, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah? Now, wait a minute. About finding a woman murdered is no laughing matter.
I know it isn't, Inspector, but listening to you tell that story is very funny.
Why?
Because you don't believe it any more than I do. It's too packed. Too many discrepancies.
I do. Now, wait a minute. I arrested the guy.
I know you did. That's why you're here. You arrested the guy. But then you realized you'd stuck your chin out. You began wondering how to salvage your pride and your reputation.
Well, I like that. So you
That's all right, Inspector. I'll be glad to help you. We'll go down to the tenement house on Spring Street at once.
I don't know, Bud. If it got around that I was backing down on my original move.
What would happen, Inspector?
Well, a man in my position, all the newspapers have published the story.
I see. You think if we produce evidence that indicates there's been a miscarriage of justice, it would give you a bad name.
That's it. I wouldn't want you to make a monkey out of me, Bud.
Inspector, I love it. There's always a conflict in your mind as to whether you've made a wrong decision or whether your pride is going to be hurt.
Well?
Don't worry, Inspector. If we can save a man from the electric chair, the monkeys won't mind if we join their ranks. Is that the place, Inspector?
Yeah, that's it.
It's not a very impressive-looking building, is it?
No, Ben Cramer wasn't doing so well. He and his wife practically lived in the slums.
I see. Well, let's go in and see if Kramer's home.
It's this door here.
Yeah, the last one at the end of the corridor, huh? Well, let's find out if he's home.
Yes?
Hello, Kramer. It's Danton.
Oh, yes, Inspector Danton.
This is Barton Drake, the criminologist.
Drake?
How do you do, Mr. Kramer?
Is something wrong? What did you want to see me about?
We want to ask you a few questions. You mind if we step inside?
Yes. Well, that is, couldn't you come back some other time, gentlemen? Judith, my wife, was taken away this morning.
We appreciate how you feel, Mr. Kramer. However, I think there's one person who feels worse than you do today.
Feels worse? I don't believe I understand.
Steve Allison. He's sitting in a jail cell, Mr. Kramer, charged with murder.
Allison, that rat.
Yes, possibly he's a rat, possibly he's a murderer. But until we're sure, I think you should forget your grief for a few minutes and answer our questions.
Until you're sure. What do you mean by that? Allison murdered Judy. Inspector Danton saw it.
Well, back up. Not so fast, Sonny. Inspector Danton didn't see anything. All Inspector Danton did was to walk in on a guy and find him holding a gun.
Suppose we step inside, Mr. Kramer, and continue from there, shall we?
Well, now, just a minute. The least you can do is respect a man's
We
grief.
do respect your grief, Mr. Kramer, but we respect the possibility of a miscarriage of justice more. Where was the body lying, Inspector?
Right there by the window.
I see. Yes, there are still some blood stains on the carpet. These have been analyzed, of course.
Yeah, there's her blood, all right.
I see. And the bullet that was taken from Mrs. Kramer's body came from the gun you found Allison holding?
Yes, it did, and the fingerprints on the gun were Steve Allison's. I don't know what you're trying to prove, Drake. Inspector Danton saw
Stop talking about what I saw. I didn't see anything.
Well, you saw enough to arrest Steve and charge him with the murder. I was here. I heard you.
Don't remind me of it. What's next, Bud?
I was wondering, Inspector, about those fingerprints. How many sets were found on the gun?
One. They were Allison's, all right.
Sure they were. That proved
In this instance, Kramer, one set of prints practically proves that Allison didn't murder your wife.
Proves he didn't. What the devil are you talking
Let's
about?
reconstruct what happened, see what we have here. Allison came up here with a gun in his pocket. He took out the gun and shot Mrs. Kramer. Is that right?
I suppose so. What does that prove?
Perhaps nothing. But if Allison came with the gun, he must have handled it before he arrived here. In that event, there'd be more than one set of prints, wouldn't there?
I don't see why you...
I do. But you're right. I should have thought of that myself.
Yes, however, if Allison arrived and found Judith lying dead on the floor, he would have been shocked. His natural impulse would have been to pick up the gun and...
Ben, darling.
Sadie, I told you to... I'm sorry. Gentlemen, this is Miss Sadie Evans. She's a friend of mine.
A friend, eh? Do all your friends call you Ben, darling?
Resent that. Ben, who are these men?
I'm Barton Drake, Miss Evans. This is Inspector Noah Danton.
Hi.
We're here to ask Mr. Kramer a few questions regarding his wife's death.
Asking questions? But I thought Steve Allison...
Steve did murder Judith. Drake's got it into his head that I did.
Oh, you must have a guilty conscience, Cramer.
No, I haven't got a guilty conscience either, but I'm not fool enough to think that accusing me of the murder isn't your reason for being here.
Well,
See, Bart, that guy's smart.
I don't have to be smart to see through your artifice. I suppose next you'll be saying that Steve wasn't here at all.
Oh, that's absurd. I saw him myself.
You saw him, Miss Evans?
Yes. Well, I was just going into my room when he came along the hall and knocked on Ben's door.
Where is your room, Miss Evans?
It's across the hall, 2 doors down.
I say, did you see Allison enter this apartment?
No. No, I couldn't just stand there and stare at him.
Why not? Most women are curious
Inspector,
enough to...
please. What did you do, Miss Evans?
What difference does it make? Don't answer him, Sadie. You don't have
I'm sorry, Cramer. This is important. Miss Evans, you're not sure that Allison entered this apartment.
Yes, I am. You see, after I entered my own room, I stood near the door listening.
See, female curiosity had never failed.
What did you hear, Miss Evans?
Well, I heard the door open, I heard Judy ask Steve inside, and then the door closed.
And how long was it after that Cramer and Inspector Danton arrived?
Well, I don't know for sure. Oh, perhaps 5 minutes.
That's right. Cramer and I were across the street. We waited 2 or 3 minutes after Allison entered the building.
I see, Inspector. Thanks. Miss Evans,
Yes?
were you standing at your door listening during the 5 minutes that elapsed between the time Steve entered this apartment and when Inspector Danton and Cramer arrived?
Yes, I was.
Mm-hmm. And how long would you say it was after Steve entered the apartment before you heard the shot?
Shot? Well,
There was a shot, wasn't there, Miss Evans?
Well, I suppose.
Of course there was a shot. Tell him how long it was before you heard it, darling.
I don't know. Well, I mean, it couldn't have been very long.
You know exactly how much time passed before the inspector and Cramer arrived, but you can't tell me when you heard the shot. Come, Miss Evans.
Why don't you leave her alone? How can you expect her to think with you firing questions at her?
The answer to that, Cramer, is very, very simple. Miss Evans was confused only because she didn't hear the shot at all. There wasn't any shot.
You're crazy.
Am I? Inspector?
Yeah?
I think we'd better check with some of the other tenants in this building. If there was a shot, someone would have heard it. And after that, we're going down to headquarters, Inspector, and have Steve Allison released in your custody.
This is a fine thing, Bart. I suppose you know what's going to happen the minute we get Steve Allison released.
No, what, Inspector?
The newspapers are going to blast me all over the lot for making a false arrest.
They're going to make a monkey out of you. Is that it, Inspector?
Well, maybe you think it's fun.
I think you'll find you don't have to worry, Inspector.
What do you mean, not worry? You've already proved Allison didn't murder Judith Cramer. Cramer himself was with me, so that lets him out. Say,
What, Inspector?
how about the girl? She could have done it. By gosh, why didn't I think of that before? She was in love with the guy.
And decided to shoot his wife so she could marry him.
Sure. She shot her just before Allison arrived. She knew he was coming because Cramer told her.
So she wiped the fingerprints off the gun, knowing that Steve would pick it up.
That's it. But it's dead open and shut. Let's turn around and go back.
No. Let's not, Inspector.
Let's not. But look, the girl. Hey, what are we stopping here for?
You're going to make a telephone call, Inspector.
A telephone call? And who am I going to call?
Ben Cramer. I want you to ask him and Miss Evans to meet us at Steve Allison's apartment in an hour.
Now, there's one for the book. Look, we just left them 15 minutes ago. Why didn't you tell them then?
Evidence, Inspector. We've got to collect evidence. And making this telephone call will prove to be the most successful way of getting it.
Ben?
Inspector Danton, he wants you and me to meet him at Steve's apartment in an hour.
Meet him at Steve's apartment? What for?
I don't know. Maybe he's found out something.
Found out something? Ben, are you going?
Sure I'm going. Why shouldn't I?
Why shouldn't you? Oh, darling, suppose they have found out something.
Don't worry, they haven't. There isn't a chance.
Oh, I wish I were sure. Oh, Ben, I'm afraid.
Oh, there, honey. Stop worrying. Just leave everything to me.
All right. Kiss me, Ben.
That make things better?
Oh, you know it does. Oh, if only it could always be like this.
It will be. No one's ever going to know unless...
Unless what, Ben?
Well, there's one thing that bothers me, Sadie. What did you do with the gun?
Gun? What gun?
Why, the gun that you used to shoot Judith.
What did you say, Ben Cramer?
Okay, honey, you don't have to tell me. Perhaps it's just as well that I don't know, so long as...
Ben, stop it. Stop it. I won't listen. Oh, you can't be that rotten. Not after all we've been through together.
What do you mean, that rotten? What are you talking
You
about?
know what I'm talking about. Telling me that I
Oh,
shot
for
Judith.
heaven's sake, shut up and stop putting on an act. I'm not Drake O'Danton.
Oh, I'll say you're not. You're just a two-timing rat. And if you think I'm taken in by your great play of innocence,
Play of
you're
innocence?
crazy.
Are you accusing me of murdering?
Oh, I don't have to accuse you. You did it, and I'm the gallows can prove it.
Why, you little...
Skip the act, Ben. I'm Sadie, remember? The only witness you've got.
Shut up.
Okay. Okay, Ben Cramer. That does it. I'm leaving for Steve Allison's apartment right now. And it's going to be a pleasure to see you fry in the electric chair.
Your story's most interesting, Allison. Have you the slip of paper on which Ben Cramer wrote his address?
Well, I suppose it's still here at my desk. I'll see. Yeah, here it is.
Thank you.
Does that satisfy you that I was telling the truth?
Yes, it will, as soon as I've checked Cramer's handwriting.
I don't get this, Drake. First, I'm framed for a murder I didn't commit. Then I'm told I'm free, and I'm held prisoner in my own apartment. What's the idea?
You'll know in a few minutes, Allison. In the meantime, relax. Make yourself comfortable.
Now, that's smart advice. Here I am facing a murder charge, and he tells me to relax.
I'm sorry, Allison, but Cramer and Miss Evans should be here any minute now.
Cramer. Double-crossing weasel. What's he coming here for? And who's this Miss Evans?
You don't know Sadie Evans?
Of course I don't. Why should I? Who is she, anyhow?
Why, she's a friend of Cramer's. He lives down the hall a couple of doors.
Oh, so Cramer was playing around, was he?
Well...
Time and bum coming here and telling me Judy was sick.
Let's get back to Sadie Evans, shall we? She claims she saw you when you entered Cramer's apartment.
So what?
So nothing. I was merely wondering if you remembered noticing a girl in the hall.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was a babe. That's right. Gave me a queer look now that I think about it.
Would you recognize this babe if you saw her again?
I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Say,
Hmm?
if this babe was playing around with Cramer, maybe she...
Okay, Bart. I found it.
Good work, Inspector. Anything else?
Nope, but the way I look at it, that's enough. Did Allison talk?
Oh, yes, considerable, Inspector. I think now we can safely say that the case is dead open and shut.
What do you mean, dead open and shut? What did Danton find? Listen, I'm sick and
Inspector
tired of...
Danton and I have been collecting evidence, Allison. Evidence that's going to send the murderer, Judith Cramer, to the electric chair.
And this time, nobody's making a monkey out of nobody. Oh, that's just dandy. You've got the evidence, and the two people who murdered the girl are running around the country.
The only place that the two people to whom you refer, Allison, are running is right here to this apartment.
Yeah, that's more evidence. Huh, more evidence. You know what I think?
No, what do you think?
I think you guys are a couple of dopes if you expect Cramer and that babe to come here when they can...
What were you saying, Allison?
Nothing. I'll let him in.
Okay, Drake, you can relax. Here's your
Look
murder.
your face, Sadie. Drake, I hoped I wouldn't have to say this, but it was Sadie who shot my wife.
Well, that's a lie.
Now we're getting places, Bart. It looks as though your idea is beginning to pay off.
Yes, it does, Inspector. I hardly hope for such good results.
Now, wait a minute, Drake. If you think you're going to pin this murder rap on me, you're way off the beam.
Am I, Cramer? Why?
Would I be sucker enough to come here if I thought there was a chance that you could collect evidence that would prove me guilty?
Say, he knows the answers, doesn't he, Barton? My, what a smart young man.
And since the same excuse goes for Miss Evans, Inspector, it looks as though we're wasting their time, doesn't it?
I don't need an excuse. I didn't murder anyone, and I'm getting out of here.
You're
but quick.
getting no place till we say so, baby. Sit down there. You too, Cramer.
Hey, where do you...
Well, Drake, you've got the stage all set for a dramatic payoff. Let's start the play.
Glad to, Allison. But first, I'd like to know if Miss Evans is a girl you saw in the corridor.
Oh, that could be.
Hmm?
She's anyone I'd look at twice, and I'll take it my oath.
Why, you
Take it
cheap
easy,
punk.
lady. The woods are full of guys like Allison.
Rat holes are full of them, you mean?
They sure are.
Okay. Now, are you three going to shut up, or do I shut you up? That's better. Go ahead, Bart.
Thank you, Inspector. Miss Evans, a moment ago, you accused Ben Cramer of murdering his own wife. Exactly when did you come to that conclusion?
I knew it all the time. I wouldn't have said anything, but the louse tried to frame
Frame
me
you?
for it.
Why, you little flat-footed wren, I didn't have to frame you. You killed her and then figured that
Oh.
Drake would find out, so you tried to pin it on me.
And when did you decide that Miss Evans was guilty, Cramer?
I knew it a week ago. She told me she was going to do it.
Oh.
She thought I'd marry her.
Oh, that's a dirty lie, and you can't prove it.
You're right, Miss Evans. He can't. Well, Allison, haven't you got anything to say?
Well, I was wondering when you were going to get around to me. Sure, I've got something to say. I was the guy who was framed, but good.
No, Allison, you weren't framed. You only thought you were.
I don't get it.
You will in a minute. Cramer, you and Miss Evans are under arrest. Charged with obstructing justice.
What do you mean? Obstructing justice? What is
You
this?
both claim that you knew that the other had murdered Judith Cramer, yet you allowed Steve Allison to be arrested for the crime.
Well, you can't arrest me for that. I would have told. Nobody asked me.
Where you're going, lady, you'll have a chance to talk plenty.
What neither of you knew was that Steve Allison did actually murder Judith Cramer.
See?
Then it wasn't you.
Inspector, what was it you found in Allison's bedroom?
A silencer. Here it is.
Thank you. Do you recognize this, Allison?
Sure. It's mine. Had it for years, so what?
So, you used it on the gun with which you shot Judith Cramer on the morning of October 29th.
You're crazy. You can't prove a thing.
I think I can. Shall I tell you what happened?
Yeah, you're so smart. Tell me.
You've been in love with Judith Cramer for years. When she married Ben, you tried to put her out of your mind. A week ago, you found out where she was living. You thought it'd be easy to win her back because you were so rich and Cramer had nothing.
Well, regular dime novel stuff, huh?
Yes, only cheaper. On the morning of October 29th, you went down to the tenement house. You shot Judith Cramer, using this silencer on your gun so the shot wouldn't be heard. You left the gun there, but removed the silencer and came home.
Drake, you're a dope. That'll make good reading, but it won't hold water.
Then, when Cramer came home later, he found his wife dead. He thought Miss Evans had murdered her because she'd threatened to do so. That gave Cramer an idea. He saw a chance to pin a murder on you whom he hated and let Miss Evans off free.
Oh, it still stinks. Wouldn't I be a sucker to walk into Kramer's apartment if I already knew his wife was lying dead on the floor?
No, not at all. My friend, you'd be smart. You figured that Cramer hadn't discovered his wife's dead body. If you refused to do what he asked you to, you'd be giving yourself away completely.
Oh, I see. And how are you going to prove all this?
By a queer twist of fate, Allison. Miss Evans, when was the first time you saw Steve Allison?
Well, I don't remember.
Yes, you do. You saw him on the morning of October 29th, didn't you?
Well, yes, there was a man, but, I didn't know.
No, you didn't know it was Allison because that was the first time you'd seen him. But later on, you told the inspector and I that you recognized Allison when he came back for the second time.
Say, that's right. The babe had to see Allison twice in order to recognize him the second time.
Look out! Sorry, gentlemen. You should have searched more thoroughly. I've kept this gun in my desk for years.
On the contrary, Allison, we left that gun there purposely after first removing the bullets.
Well, you couldn't have. It was hidden behind
That's not well enough, Allison. And now that you've endorsed my dime novel story by betraying yourself, I'll take that gun.
Oh, no. Keep away, you lad. Be careful. The gun is loaded. Hey!
One game of chess and then to bed, eh, Inspector?
Suits me. Say, Bart,
Yes, Inspector.
weren't you taking quite a chance trying to kid Allison into thinking that gun wasn't loaded?
Well, I suppose I was, Inspector. Still, I didn't like the idea of standing there and being shot.
Yeah. I see what you mean. By the way, when Allison went to Kramer's, knowing that Judith Cramer was lying dead on the floor, what did he plan to do?
Put on an act, of course, Inspector. Pretend he'd discovered the body.
Taking quite a chance, wasn't he?
No, I don't think he was. He knew there wouldn't be any shot. He had the slip of paper on which Cramer had written his address to substantiate his story that Cramer had asked him to come down there.
I see. He didn't figure that Cramer was going to frame him, eh?
No, and you know, Inspector, you must have given him an awful surprise when you popped in on him.
Yeah, me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Don't remind me of it. Well, all right. It's your move.
Okay, let's see. I'll move my knight over here.
No.
No? What?
Oh, I don't mean that kind of a move.
I see what you do mean, Inspector. You mean it's my move to say, mystery is my hobby.